Hello,
Susan, how's it going?
how are you?
Oh, not too bad.
Hey there, Susan. Hey there, Jim.
Theo, how are we doing?
Doing all right. I got a long list of things to check off as we go through this. It's really hilarious. Yeah. Bummer. I wrote the wrong host key down. All right, Jim, you're the co-host. There are captions. Hey there, Matt. Hey, how come the working group gets to meet in person, but we have to be?
Because the working group doesn't get to meet in person.
Oh no! All right.
No, it was that was a short-lived experience for the working group.
Ah, that's too bad. All right.
As Matt took great pains to express his frustration, I'd add correctly at that eventuality.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey there, Kevin.
Hey, how are you?
Where you gonna be? Well, an ironic start to the meeting. The only member of my household that wants to participate in this meeting, other than myself, is our dog, who has to be at my feet. All right, it is 7:01, so let us call our meeting to order. It is the July 11th meeting of the Planning Board. Thanks all of you for joining, and Susan for being here as well. So Bill Spalding.
Here.
Kevin York.
Here.
All right, thank you. Matt Lowry. Indicated yes. Jim Hogan.
Yes, present.
And myself, Theo Noel. So that's good. Our second item of business is review and approval of the minutes. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the minutes from the last meeting? Not hearing any. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, thank you, Kevin. And a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Bill. All right, all in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Matt?
Abstain.
Abstain, yep. Jim?
Yes.
And myself, yes. All right. Terrific. We have a couple minutes before opening our public meeting. I think we will circle back to this during items not anticipated, but quick round of applause to Aaron for going the distance last night at Town Council. And also Jim, y'all did a terrific job presenting 3A and fielding questions. So much appreciated.
And big shout for Aaron for presenting like half the meeting. Besides Aaron.
It was a good one. A lot of different things covered, but all related in one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah, really valuable, really good to check in. So, and it's, I don't know, a really good start to having documents and being able to field questions, both from Town Council, but from the public. So, good stuff. Quick thumbs up. How's my volume? All right, good. All right. All right. It's 7:05, so we can call our public hearing on 197 Hot Street, the subdivision definitive plan. We're continuing this public hearing. Mr. Dorney, thanks for joining us, along with Attorney Schomer. I saw Mr. Mason, and I'm not sure if David Jordan's joining us tonight.
David had a conflict tonight, Mr. Chair, so his office is represented by Corey Mason.
Okay,
tonight.
Great. All right, thank you. I wanted to do a little housekeeping and sort of set the stage for our discussion tonight. We've received several documents, really as of the 10th, so the board has not had an adequate time to review, but I think a lot of it is as expected, just in terms of the requested materials. So I think we can step through them and get some questions asked and hopefully answered, and be able to circle back on this topic at the next meeting. 4 of the documents came from the applicant, including revised site plan, a draft set of conditions, a revised sort of 2 documents, one from Attorney Schomer and one from GPI, identifying the conditions. to be applied. And we've also received some comments from the town engineer. I did an attempt to really codify a lot of the comments and questions. So I did circulate that to the rest of the planning board just as a document of reference. I've tried to tick some things off based on the documents that we've seen that we're reviewing tonight, and we'll continue to do so. I think that just as sort of another point by way of introduction, a proof plan was submitted, a draft proof plan. I don't think the planning board has seen it, but I know the engineering department has, and I don't know, Aaron, if you have. I think that the consensus of the review of that plan is that there are multiple conditions that are required, that this does not meet would not satisfy the minimum requirements of a subdivision without said waivers. I would hope that based on tonight's review and additional time with the documents that we would potentially be able to get to a vote at the next meeting on July 25th. But we'll see where we get to. There are still, I think, one or two departments that we haven't received a formal comment from. And there we go. So that's another part of the process that will resolve straightforward. I thought we could run through, Mr. Mason, the June 28th letter from GPI really quickly. I think that does a good job of just delineating the conditions. So I'll turn it over to you, and you should have the ability to share your screen and pull up the document. Before you do that, really quick show of hands. Does planning board, y'all are in possession of these documents? Okay. All right. Yeah, good. All right. All right. Corey, you want to get us started? I can share my screen if you'd rather, but you should be able to.
Actually having trouble with our network right now, so I'm not able to pull up anything, unfortunately. I don't know, Jesse or anyone else who's able to. Sorry about that.
All right, and Jim's got it too.
Okay. So the list of waivers that we see here is reflected of the engineering department's review of the proof plan. So those items have been added to the, added to the revised plans that were circulated yesterday, which basically illustrate the limitations of what the proof plan is showing versus meeting all subdivision requirements without the need for waivers. So that's, I don't know if you want to touch on each one of them, but with the existing lot configuration and the frontage available, these dimensional requirements are not able to be met as a non-waiver layout. So let me see here.
And it like the 9 items here, minimum right of way, travel lanes, pavement width, leveling area, the minimum radius of right of way, the minimum cul-de-sac paved radius, sidewalks, grass strip, and the tree planting. Are there any comments or questions from the planning board on these?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why was the applicant required to do a proof plan? I mean, we knew that this was a small minimus subdivision, and I think all the board members were aware of, you know, what could be done with that site. I may be speaking out of hand, I don't know. I just don't understand why they were required to do this and why it came from the engineering department and not through the planning board. So I may be just asking a rhetorical question here, but why did they have to do this?
I can speak to that. I had a meeting, well, not a meeting, informal, just went down to the office engineering after we last met and was talking to Tim Wilson, who's a senior engineer down there. And after speaking with him, he works for Bill Renault. He mentioned that Bill likes seeing this as just a way to prove that it could be a conventional subdivision, he's used this in the past in a community he's worked for before and found it to be very helpful. And so they just thought it would be in the best interest of both the planning board and the applicant, and just to put all the information out there to have a proof plan.
All right. I've worked in a lot of towns where it's required to, and there are instances where a proof plan is required and is necessary, but I believe all the board members were, again, I might be speaking out of hand, but it seems like we were all comfortable with this, and this really was a step that didn't need to happen. And unfortunately, it's the client that has to pay the bill on this. So, I'm trying to make the process a little more friendly. I don't think we're stepping out of bounds by allowing one house lot to be added on here. So I'm just a little annoyed that this was directed not from the planning board, but from the engineering department. And I kind of wish, actually, I should take this back. I don't know if this was discussed at the last meeting because I wasn't at the last meeting. So I could be speaking out of hand, but I just don't think that something like this should come from someone other than the authority that's going to be approving this. So that's my thoughts in this. I'm sorry that the applicant has to pay for this, because I know the cost involved in doing this, and I think it was unnecessary.
Matt, I'd like to back you up on that and echo the same. I was surprised that was asked for. I've been in front of many planning boards in other towns too, and I don't understand why we needed it for this, and I don't feel the engineering department should have asked for it either. Thanks for bringing that up.
All right.
On that, if I may, Mr. Chair, from the applicant's perspective, our understanding was that what Mr. Renault was looking for was some kind of confirmation that if in the scenario that this roadway had to be built out to a full width road, that it could accommodate the necessary drainage that would be required by the Mass Stormwater Management Standards. That was our understanding of the purpose of the exercise, and we were happy to provide him with that information. We were a little surprised to find out that what he was actually looking for was a proof to show that a by right subdivision road could be built, because I think we don't feel it's necessary in this instance. It's a bit of an unusual exercise. I've never been asked for a proof plan like that for a subdivision like this, but be that as it may, we've crossed that bridge, and I think we've demonstrated that the drainage, if necessary, could be installed within the roadway that we're laying out here. So I think it has accomplished something from that perspective, but we don't feel it's necessary to demonstrate that a by right subdivision road could be built.
I guess my point is, if we come to this scenario again, outside, past this, that it's run through the board first, just so, again, we don't want to be imposing any unnecessary costs on anybody if we don't have to. At least I don't want to. So I think in the future, we just need to make sure that it's directed by the board, because the board is the one who has the authority to waive all these if they feel like it's and it's not to be detrimental to the neighborhood or an undue burden on anyone in the town. So that's my position on this.
Thank you, Matt and Bill. I think that that takes one item off my list for future conversation about best practices for our subdivision rules and regs revisions. Not having seen the proof plan, the assertion that it shows that there'll be adequate drainage without the trench.
I have the proof plan. I could put it up, Mr. Chair. I believe, if I remember correctly, and Corey, correct me if I misstate this, but I believe it was additional drainage that's not shown on the actual proposed definitive subdivision plan. It just shows that there's additional room for it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct, Jesse. It is a infiltration trench that's modified from the proposal to, collect more volume for runoff if the road were to be, a compliant subdivision road. So it's just a wider trench with a different pre-treatment approach, but something that could be designed to meet the standards.
Okay. All right. I guess that's helpful for me. I think puts that into context. All right.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Proof plan, whether or not it was appropriate to have it be as it may, we're looking on a going forward basis. I'm assuming, but I would like to just verify with the balance of the board, the conditions that are being laid out here on the basis of the specific subdivision that we're talking about and the requirements to have a reduced right of way, travel lanes, pavement with the cul-de-sac, sidewalks, grass strippings. These are all fundamentally, in my opinion, from my reading of it, all basically coming from the same thing, where the site as currently cited does not have sufficient frontage along Nahant Street. And all of these are basically, there's 9-10 conditions here, but they're all fundamentally from the same issue. And I personally, from the number of conversations that we as a board have had regarding this subdivision, feel comfortable with the concept of having 2 single-family homes being serviced from a shared driveway. And so therefore I would advocate that the balance of the planning board, considers granting all these waivers as part of this subdivision. And I have a level of comfort based on the review of this particular site that would be appropriate.
That's very helpful. Yeah, I generally concur as well. The Kevin, do you care to speak to this to these conditions?
I would agree. I think they all, like Jim said, stem from the same issue, which is the existing lot doesn't meet the requirements itself. So I'm comfortable with all 9 of these.
Yeah. Okay. Matt and Bill?
Theo, I'm also comfortable with each of them.
Okay.
I don't have any questions. I was just looking through my past notes, and I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable.
Okay. Yeah, and the 10th condition is the 10th waiver rather, is regarding the coefficient of regularity. Mr. Mason, do you want to speak to that?
Right, so the waiver required would be for the existing portion of the lot, which would become lot A. Yeah. Though it meets the minimum area requirements by quite a bit. There is basically the spur of the lot that connects to Kathleen Drive that adds quite a bit of length to the lot, but not any measurable area. So because of that specific instance, it causes the calculation to not meet the minimum. But in every other sense where the remaining lot is going to be able to fit the standard building area that we believe it's in the spirit of the regulations. Yep, that right there on the screen. Yep. So the calculation is based on area and perimeter. So that perimeter factors into the regularity coefficient.
Yeah, and this is completely consistent with many other subdivisions that we've done where there have been, odd shaped lots like this where they have a little jet out. So yeah, I'm perfectly fine with this. And this waiver is something that we almost grant quite a bit. So I have no problem.
And to Matt's further point, I believe we also specifically addressed this waiver during, I want to say, the preliminary in December. We talked about it as a board and all came to the same conclusion that this would be an appropriate waiver to grant as well.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we have any other discussion required on this item. So that's really helpful. I did wonder to what extent it really needed to be enumerated directly on with my notes on page 3 of the plans. So just to make it much clear and obvious. So I didn't take good notes on that.
Mr. Chair, you're talking about this section right here.
Yeah, this is where it says waiver. Yeah, I think it would be useful to make it an item number 10 under the notes.
We can add that. I'll make sure David adds that, Mr. Chair. I don't want to speak for him, but I believe he may have left it off here because technically it's not a waiver of the board's rules and regulations. It's a provision of the zoning bylaw that allows the planning board to approve this dimension. But I don't disagree that it's perfectly appropriate to have it on the plan here. So we're happy to do that.
That's good. It makes it easier to check off. So that's helpful. So that said, Matt, you had a number of specific questions that I hope we successfully forwarded to Attorney Schomer and Mr. Jordan and Mr. Mason. Do you want me to bring them up? Yeah.
Yes, they were talked about at the last meeting.
We raised them, but we did expect to come back to them today and speak to it. So So with that, how about we go straight to the 8 plans and step through them really quickly, and we can tackle these questions. And I think we did talk about a restrictive covenant and an O&M plan, and we did come up with a list of quite a few conditions to be added, and Attorney Schomer, I think you've captured most of them in your draft document. So I did want to sort of step through the plans and step through that so that we could all see where they are, and if we're comfortable with them. So.
Sure. Corey, are you able to share your screen now, or are you still having technical issues on your end? You're muted.
I do have the plans up. If you'd like me to share those, I can do that.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, you're kidding.
You want to try it again?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
All right, how's that looking?
Very good. So.
Okay. Attorney Schumer, do you want to run through the items and I can
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. I'll go through my notes from the comments from the previous hearing. The first comment, I believe, was a request that we show the existing condition of the sewer depth and type on the plan.
Yep. Okay, so we've relabeled the cleanouts to reflect actually being cleanouts and not full of debris manholes as we previously labeled them. So those labels are here. In addition, we revised the profile to include all the utilities, including the sewer here. So we can see in the dashed line here, we show the existing sewer line with the inverts labeled as measured from the existing cleanouts. In addition, you can see the water and the gas services.
Okay, and I believe that plan also ties into the second comment, which was a request that we confirm that the existing sewer service would not be damaged during construction. There was a question whether there would need to be an adjustment of the grade of manholes. Is this covered here as well, Corey?
Yes. So there will be a slight adjustment as shown here. I don't know, can you see my cursor?
Yes.
You can, okay. So the clean out here and the sewer manhole cover would need to be raised and the second would need to be lowered to match the proposed grade. So those are identified here with proposed rim elevations.
Thanks, Corey. The next point I have in my list, Mr. Chair, is a request that we show the project limit of work on the plan.
Yep.
Yes. So utility plan and profile sheet.
This is what, page 5?
Yes, page 5. We've added a few labels to show the limit of work, which essentially follows the erosion control barrier in the front and the dashed dot line type here along the side property line. This line was previously shown, but we've added additional lines and labels to show limit of work, which essentially in the front of the site is nearly up to the property line.
Right.
Thanks, Corey.
I'm sorry, if I can ask a question about that. The erosion control, are you going to put that down along the limit of work line on day 1, or because we're still not sure how this is going to be phased? I know we're going to probably do the driveway and then the house is going to be built later. So how is this going to be rolled out?
I'm not sure what the intended phasing is as far as construction goes. However, the erosion controls are dictated to be placed prior to any earth, earthwork or earth disturbance. So if there is no earthwork proposed in a certain area, perhaps the erosion controls get phased per where the active construction is.
If,
the erosion
Corey,
controls shown on the plan are.
if you don't mind, Matt, at the last meeting, the indication, and I defer to Mr. Dorney or Schromer, but the indication at that time was that no construction was envisioned to take place until such time as the lot B that's being subdivided was sold and the construction of the second house would be undertaken. So it would be an existing condition until such time as the full construction of the new home and subsequent driveway would be completed concurrently.
All right, so there'll be no phasing then. Okay. Good.
But again, I'll defer to Mr. Dorney and Schomer, but that was the indication from the last meeting.
That's the intent, Mr. Chair. I think the current driveway is serving Mr. Dorney's house perfectly well. So the idea would be that when Lot B is sold to the new owner, it's anticipated that that owner would build out the way and then build the house more or less at the same time, with some, I suppose, some sequencing in the sense that you'd have to build the road to get construction vehicles up in there and then go onto the house.
All right, then this may need to be put in as a condition because normally when we approve subdivisions, there's a time limit for construction on them. And if for some reason this lot doesn't get sold for a couple of years, we still want to make sure that all these conditions are going to be met. So I think maybe a provision that, upon construction, whatever that is, that these all will be met. I don't want, a timeline for this to elapse and then someone come in and say, oh, well, we're past that, we can do whatever we want at this point. So I just want to make sure that that's nailed down.
Understood. Okay. So the next item, Mr. Chair, that I have in my list is, this was somewhat discussed at the previous hearing, a request to avoid encroachment of the drainage structures within the drip line of the trees that are proposed to be saved here. And I believe Corey's plan is now marking the drip line. This is, of course, this is an approximation. And what we discussed at the previous hearing for the benefit of Mr. Lowry was that the area that we're looking at here with the right rear corner of the house, that's actually going to be a fill area of the site. So it won't be a cut or an excavation where this house is being put in. It's actually new material being placed on top of the existing grade. So certainly, I think this is something that could be handled in a condition. But Corey, anything you want to add on that topic?
No, I think that makes sense as far as placing fill for the construction, and the tree protection fence here should protect the existing roots. So yeah, I think it's noted on the plan, so the contractor would be aware to engage the construction to protect the trees.
How would you write that?
In terms of a condition, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So it could be the plan here that we're looking at. This is showing the proposed tree protection. The dashed line is the tree protection fence, and I believe the detail sheet may have some additional details showing what those fences are. But the condition could provide for the required compliance with the tree protection plan, oversight by the project engineer. The critical portion of those kind of plans, as I understand it, is really twofold. Is one, protection from vehicles to make sure you don't have vehicles parking on top of that area, and then making sure that you don't have storage of heavy materials, which would compact the roots of the trees, and then also limited protection of excavation. But that in this area is not really an issue.
Does the rest of the board think we need to add a condition to this effect?
I'm comfortable with how it's worded on the plan and the detail for the protection fence.
Okay. All right.
I'm just pulling up the plans and taking a look. So you've got a and forgive me, I didn't get to review this story that I wanted. So you're showing an 86 contour right against the limit of work line. With the existing grade there looks to be about maybe 85 feet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So there'll be no grading into that buffer zone there, correct? It looks like you're a little bit, either you're going to have a steep drop off or you're going to need to grade under that tree. So I don't see how you could bring that 86 console right up against the protection area and not blend into the existing grades there. Has that been looked at?
Yeah, that's a fair comment. The way it's drawn, probably doesn't do it justice to what actually would be, foot by foot would be constructed. So, we could clarify the 86 to run closer to the house there, to not necessitate any fill within the tree protection fence. But you're correct. So the existing grade is plus or minus 85 in the area. We're proposing 86. So fill of 1 foot. But there would be no detriment to pulling the 86 back slightly so that fill could be placed easier.
All right. And what's your basement floor elevation?
I don't believe that's determined yet.
Yeah, the house is really just that. It's a footprint. I don't think it's known at this point whether it would have a basement. So that's not shown on the plan.
All right. Well, I'm just looking at constructability, and it's looking tough for me right now because you've got to, depending on if there's going to be a basement there, you need to dig down to have proper room to put your forms in and slope up your hole. It's tight in there, and then you're going to fill on top of that afterwards. There's a lot of work going on right around there. So if you're really intent on keeping those trees, this is going to be a really area of critical concern that someone's going to need to work pretty hard to make sure there's no damage in there. So, as long as that tree protection's in and it's where it's supposed to be, there'll be people watching it. So.
Matt, would it make sense? I was thinking the same thing with that whole 86. So just surprised it just doesn't continue where it is with the grade rise, just dropping as it goes past the house towards Nahant Street. I know this is just a proposed single family and the footprint is just there. Is there anything we want to do as a board to bring back that foundation closest to Nahant and just have it pushed back 4 feet? I mean, if that's all it takes for this plan, I don't understand why I'm not trying to diminish your comments, Matt, but this plan, this footprint isn't realistic. We won't know until the future builders come in and lay out a house and design the house and put it in. So do we want to push that foundation wall that's closest to Nahant Street a couple of feet back?
Well, I don't think we can do that because whoever buys this would have the right to build within whatever setbacks are out there.
Right.
So I think the only way we can do this is to maybe push out the limit of work line on that tree to make sure it's protected. And then they'll have to work around that. So I think that's our only resolve, is to make sure that whatever tree protection is put out there, it's staked out and it's held as an actual limit, and they've got to work around that.
Man, I remember doing this with a subdivision a few years ago. Didn't we have it so the limit of tree line was in front of the drip and they did like a little wall or something? What project was that one? They did a wall just to take up the difference of the foundation, of the distance from the foundation and the cut and fill.
Yeah, I've got so many projects in my head.
Yeah, I think this was like 2018, 2019. So
yeah.
I believe we did in a similar way, move that limit of work line in front of the drip line. Yes, the trees still need to be protected with the fence, but it allowed us to feel comfortable with that proposed single family not intruding on any of the existing trees and hopefully not the roots.
Yeah. So see, that's the only thing this board has jurisdiction over is the limit of work line and the tree protection. So we just need to make sure that we're all comfortable. You know, I'm comfortable where it is now. It's just it needs to be laid out in the field, and it needs to be held, and it needs to be, you know, whatever the grade is, wherever that limit of work line is, they need to work backwards from that and make it work. So the 86 contour on there is just obviously aspirational. Actually, it's extremely aspirational at this point because it can't be done unless you put a wall in.
So what would be the proposed limit of work line we're talking about? It would basically be what follow the 86 contour line around that lower right edge of the house?
No, the limit of work line is going to be around the tree.
Yeah.
Wherever we decided the tree is. And then whatever the grade is closest to the house is where they start from. That's not going to be touched, and they're going to start designing from that point out. And that will dictate if there's a basement, if it's a walkout, grades around there, all that. So, but if this is in fact a fill situation, and then you need to fill in with this gravel edge where we're infiltrating, this is where I have a little concern about if it's really going to be built properly and is it going to be maintained. So this is one of my concerns with this system here. Instead of having an infiltration system, having this drip edge around the house, I don't think it's going to be maintained properly if it's even constructed properly.
Well, from the applicant's perspective, what I would say is, you know, it's important to have well-worded, well-drafted conditions that are applicable to the construction contractor and the owner of this home, and it'll be incumbent upon them to comply with the conditions of the board. You know, and what we're showing here, we recognize it's a tight area here. That may dictate that the house, as Mr. Spalding suggested, ultimately does need to be pulled back by a couple of feet. But I think what we strove to do here is show what is possible if you have the best engineer, the best contractor, the best construction company, and optimal protection. Could this be done? Yes, it certainly could be. It would be challenging, and ultimately in the field, it may need to be pulled back.
So, so it sounds like maybe a condition about ensuring that, the tree protection line does not conflict, or grading does not conflict with the tree protection, so that, not, the tree protection isn't compromised. Is that really what we're saying? And the future line of work should confirm this. Is that what we're?
I think what we need to do is tree protection shall be staked out as shown on the approved plans, and shall be maintained during construction of the house. And that's going to be their limit. They're going to work back from that. I think that's about all we can do. I think that should cover it.
Okay.
Okay, well, if there are no more additional questions on the tree protection issue, I can move on to the next point on my list, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I was trying to toggle back to my list too.
Okay.
Yeah,
the next item I had, Mr. Chair, was a request that we show the patching of the retaining wall along Nahant Street to match existing. Corey, can you go to that?
Yes.
All right, so which page are we on?
So this is page 5, the utility plan and profile. So the work that would be potentially impacting to the wall is the proposed water and sewer services. The new call out here refers to note 13, and that is stated here, reconstruct the wall to match existing. I don't know if there's any question or comment on that.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
Yep, I'm satisfied with that.
Yep.
Great. The other two items I had on my list, Mr. Chair, were to show the detail of the drainage trench and the detail of the erosion control barrier. And I believe those are both added on the detail sheets now.
That's correct. I'm sorry, on sheet 6 here. So this is the infiltration trench detail. Previously, this portion of the detail was included. This elevation has been added to show the clay barriers and the spacing of 20 feet and how the fabric will be wrapped around the crushed stone. So that was that item. The straw wattles were previously shown, I believe, as the erosion control barrier. Was there another comment relative to that? I'm not sure.
That's all I had in my list, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So I have a comment on the detail for the clay barrier. Your intention is to bring it up to the same level as the gravel that's in there. So each of these chambers are going to be basically separated from each other, or?
That's correct. Yep. This was done in conjunction with comments from engineering that were questioning the original analysis of the, whether during a rain event, whether all the water basically just runs to the bottom of the trench. With the clay barriers every 20 feet, and let me jump back to the plan here, where we have runoff entering the trench along its entire length, these barriers will help to, stop runoff from just spilling down to the bottom immediately. So it's going to store water in each of these cells and promote infiltration. So this will actually further reduce peak flow rates from the site.
All right, so all the infiltration is from laterally. There'll be none coming through the trench going downhill.
That's the intent. Yep. And then the final cell here has a clay barrier at the end. So doing what we can in the space to maximize infiltration and minimize peak flows.
Okay, I was just curious about that.
There was a concern about adding an overflow pipe to prevent overflow across the street and hazards related to freezing during cold weather. I think that came from engineering.
I don't recall seeing that comment.
Mr. Chair, was that perhaps something that Bill noted in his recent letter that it was issued today? Because I don't believe we've seen that letter.
Oh, no, I think it came from comments made around our prior meeting. So can you all put that on your checklist to follow up on?
Corey, do you have that?
I'll make a note to look into that.
Yeah, the comment, design of the infiltration trench should include an overflow pipe to prevent overflow across the street and hazard during cold weather.
I'm not remembering that one either.
Okay, then yeah, then it was a comment that came up from engineering. So
I do remember the comments about having the retention system spread out evenly across the length. Using retention system, which I can't see the text on it. Infiltration trench with clay barriers. So the clay barriers we talked about.
You're right.
And we talked about the spacing, but I don't think we talked about an overflow.
Yeah.
I don't recall that either, actually.
I think I saw something in one of Bill's comments that I read today. I don't know when it was, if it's been sent to you yet, but yeah, he did have some concerns about overflow going across the sidewalk and being a hazard. I don't know if he's saying he wants a punch train at the end of the road or what, but I'm not sure how you would address that anyway.
If you guys want, I can pull up the specific comment. It was from engineering's response that was issued within the last 24 hours.
Oh, really? That was that recent? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes more sense. I didn't get a chance to read those yet. Okay.
Yeah. It's so it's the comment originally was that there was the HydroCAD model showed it with an 80% slope next to the outcrop. The applicant responded as it relates to the infiltration trench being modified to include the clay barriers, and the excess runoff would overtop the clay barrier and continue to the next cell downstream. The engineering response on the next page, bear with me for a second, is that the trench shown on the construction plan and utility plan and profile doesn't match the infiltration trench detail on the detail sheet. Update detail to be consistent with the plan, add clay barrier detail to show how it's constructed. Additionally, the plan appears to show infiltration trench overflowing overland across the Nahant Street sidewalk, and that the engineering division doesn't allow stormwater BMPs to overflow across sidewalks due to the possibility of freezing, causing a hazard in cold weather.
Okay, that we'll have to take a look at that comment and discuss it with David and how he's going to address it.
Okay.
And I'm assuming Attorney Schomer, has the applicant received a copy of this letter, which was issued? Actually, I believe it was dated on 7/7, if I recall. Now I'm looking at it again.
I have not seen it, but it may have been provided to David. I don't know. I don't think we've seen it though.
Okay.
I haven't seen it personally, so.
All right. All right. Follow up. All right. Yeah. no fair asking you to speak to something you haven't seen yet. So, yeah. So we did have a lot of discussion at the last meeting about the creation of a homeowners association to ensure continued maintenance and the O&M plan and all of that. I know that was drafted as part of Attorney Schomer, your document. Ask the rest of the planning board to review it. Yeah, I don't think it's in this one. I think there was a Word document that was drafted summarizing all 10 waivers and then enumerating something like 29 different conditions.
I
yes.
believe I have quick access to that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just to confirm and clarify, the document that I sent over to Aaron, it was modeled off of the board's decision for the project that was approved a few years ago on 291 Salem Street, which is a similar shared driveway type situation, and there was a homeowners association restrictive covenant and contemplated operation and maintenance plan. And so the condition was essentially the same as what was drafted there. I don't know if that was drafted by the board or Attorney McGrail, who represented the applicant on that project, but I can't take credit for the language of that condition, but we attempted to model it off of what was done there.
Okay. Got it. We also we did talk about the operations and maintenance plan. I don't know. We've received a draft of that, correct? Like a 3-page draft.
Yeah, this is the document that's shown up on the screen now.
Okay. All right.
Dated the July 10th. So what this does is just clarify the responsibilities for each of the BMPs in parentheses after the titles. And each of these items are shown in a log, and on sheet 3 is a plan showing the locations and the names of each. So that should help clarify future long-term responsibilities for maintenance.
Okay. All right, so we'll look at that. Something else that has come up and that I did see in the plans was, right, there is a condition, a note that no fencing or accessory structures bordering along the Nahant, right?
That's right. I believe it was drafted to include within the setback to Nahant Street, so that would apply to any fence, any shed, or anything like that, just to make sure that there's nothing stacked up against the lot line or within the setback to that lot line.
Okay. And I think the last item, a potential restrictive covenant to enforce the creation and maintenance of the homeowners association and the O&M plan. Is that
is included as well, Mr. Chair? That's addressed in proposed condition number 7. And in a nutshell, the restrictive covenant requires compliance with the stormwater operations and maintenance plan, upkeep and clearing of the way, maintenance of the way, snow removal from the way, the requirements of the homeowners association, and I believe compliance with the Mass Stormwater Management Standards as well.
Good. I think that took care of all of the items I wanted to run down. Are there other questions or comments from board members?
I'm all set.
Okay.
I have a couple. So let's see. Item 18, proposed new street trees or other landscaping shall be installed as shown on a definitive subdivision plan. We're not installing any street trees out here, are we? Or
there are no street trees shown on the plan.
So those, so the new trees, you're talking about the trees on lot 2, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then item 27, you say the property shall not be further subdivided. I think this should be lots A and B or whatever the ultimately are named, because assessing wants to have numbers that match. So whatever the lots are going to be shall not be further subdivided. And you should specify that there's 2 lots that might be further subdivided, not just the property.
We have no problem with that additional language. I think it captures the intent here. There's no intent on the part of the Dorneys to further subdivide. So
okay. And is there a requirement for an as-built of this and a sign off by the planning board?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the one word you said, a request for a what? What was that?
An as-built.
Yes, that is a requirement. I believe that's towards the beginning of the conditions, but I can find it here.
All right.
That is condition 11, requiring an as-built plan of the way. And it may also be a different condition requiring the new house as built. No, it looks like it's just the condition 11 just applies to the way. We're happy to add the lot B house as built, but I think that's probably more of a building department matter, but have no problem providing it to the board as well.
I would just make sure that the as-built needs to be approved by the planning board and the engineering. We've had issues before where engineering department has signed off on things without consultation with the board, and we have a little bit of odds with that. So it needs to be that the board will be approving this, since the board is the one granting the waivers and allowing this to be done. So any as-builts will be approved by the board in conjunction with engineering.
Very good. We'll make that change.
And then one more thing, during the public hearing, the applicant provided the board with the following materials. I would remove number 6, the draft proof plan, because it hasn't been provided to the board, and I don't know if any of the board wants to really see it. I don't think it's necessary, but technically we haven't seen it, so it shouldn't be in here that we did see it.
I'll take that out.
Unless anyone else wants to Any of the board members want to see it or?
No.
Go against me, I don't care. So.
Yeah. All right. All right. All right. Sounds like anyone else? Okay. All right. That said, Busan and Denny, I know you're on the phone. We'll open it up. Do you have any comments about what we've discussed tonight?
Yeah, this is Bhushan from 3 Kathleen Drive. Question, and this is more because I'm still catching up on my knowledge on how to read some of these diagrams, especially on the elevation of the ground as to how it is existing and how it is being proposed. So my question is, I understand that the construction line is going to be getting very close or actually near the property line between my property and the new proposed lot. I see some elevation being mentioned out there. My question is, how exactly I should read that as an, is there any extra elevation which will happen where I should be concerned with water dripping into my lot? And my main question and concern is always with respect to my propane tank is very close to the property lines. So with that concern, I'm asking this question / explanation as to how is the ground elevation is going to get increased along that property line where there can be or will there be any water seepage happening to my backyard? If someone can go over or cover that topic a little bit.
I have to defer to Corey if he can answer the question about how the grading work takes place near the limit of work, Mr. Chair. If I'm not mistaken, and I'm just looking at the plan here, I believe the property will be grading down from where your property is. So there wouldn't be an issue of runoff per se. But Corey, perhaps you can speak to the issue of the grading.
Absolutely. So on sheet 4 of the proposed plan set, the proposed contours are shown in dark, thick black line with the elevation labels on them. You're correct. The limit of work is, plus or minus a foot or two off of the property line. The intent with the grading behind the new house is to create a drainage swale in the grassed area. The contours shape will direct water on lot B around the proposed house and towards Nahan Street as it currently flows. So there, with the proposed grading, there would be no increase of runoff to the backyard. If anything, it's going to formalize the runoff more so than it is now, so that it should be more channelized and directed on the property. So there should not be any increase of runoff to your backyard.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for covering that. And one other question, the erosion control line, right? The one with that triangle and dash lines, that is not covered all the way up to the left. Can you explain me how to read that line, between the property lines between these two things? There is one with the triangles and horizontal, which is ending near to that new tree proposed. Why is it not going all the way to the left? And what is the meaning of that? Can you just explain that?
Of course. The line with the triangle symbol in it represents the erosion control, which is it's a silt straw wattle. So it's like a 1 foot diameter wattle that gets placed on the ground and staked in. So this is going to capture any sediment that happens to run off during construction when the land is being graded. This is placed where shown to, capture any runoff as it flows down towards Nahant Street. So the grades drop off by several feet towards the existing retaining wall along Nahant Street. It does stop near the proposed tree, as you point out, and transitions to the dashed dot line. That line is just simply delineating the limit of work. It doesn't represent erosion control. The reason that it's stopped where it is because the existing contours and the proposed grading will direct water back into the site. Therefore, there should be no sediment or any other runoff flowing off of the site. So where the straw wattle is proposed is intended to capture any runoff and sediment during construction.
Okay, so that covers my question. So you're saying that anything on that left, in fact, the water, the way the ground elevation will be managed is the ground is having the runoff towards the new constructed house or towards the Nahant Street and not necessarily towards my backyard or towards the Kathleen Drive. Is that how we should read this?
Exactly, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate this.
You're welcome.
That's it from my side today.
I have a question. The limit of work line, is that going to be laid out with a snow fence, or how is it going to be actually laid out in the field?
I guess that would be something that would be in the contractor's responsibility. A lot of times the property lines will be staked out and then some offset would be applied to that, either by stakes or by some other marking, but I can't speak to the exact method.
So should we specify that and how it should be laid out? Would that help?
That would be agreeable, Mr. Lowry. We could include that as a condition in the decision, providing for the limit of work be demarcated by a snow fence or equivalent.
All right, that keeps everyone knowing what the boundaries are and not crossing them. So I agree. Just beanpole stakes labeled limit of work line can usually be in the ground and violated. So I think let's put in a snow fence or we use the limit of work lines.
That would be great. Again, pushing from 3 Kathleen out here. Again, my main question and concern always comes with respect to my propane tank, which is very close to the property line. So having any such demarcation, which helps any construction worker not to encroach, and again, encroach more from the safety perspective than anything, that would be really great.
And that's a good and helpful concern. We appreciate you pointing that out to us. I think obviously the presence of a propane tank is going to be something that the contractor is going to have to be paying very close attention to make sure that there's not a safety issue. So they'll before they begin any kind of work, they'll go out and do recognizance of the site and take whatever steps are necessary to ensure that there's no impact there. And obviously they won't be permitted to pass into your property.
Yeah, no, that's completely understood. As to they will not, again, as in by nature, by virtue, by way of their working, they will not encroach. It's just that some mishap, some misunderstanding, and having something upfront out there always helps. That's the point. But I understand. Again, as in nobody's going to encroach by virtue of it. I understand. But again, having the mishap with the propane tank can be disastrous, and we should take the utmost care for that.
Agreed.
Hey, this is Denny. Can I speak?
Sure, please.
On this as well. All right. I'm at 2-1 in the hunt. I guess one of the things I wanted to ask about is, or at least get clarification on, is with the waivers that were requested regarding the new street that would be going that would be going in for the subdivision. Where is where would you consider the front yard, side yard, rear yard? Because previously I had mentioned the whole shed portion, you know, and not wanting a shed in place on the Nahant side, but I was told that that would be the front yard, and by, you know, zoning, that would not be allowed to be, I guess, you know, to be put in. But with a new street going in, would the front yard no longer be the Nahant street side?
Is the question, just to make sure I understand, this is with Lot B, correct?
Yes.
So what we're considering the front yard of the house to be the frontage of the house along the new right of way. So the side of the house facing Nahant Street is the side. There certainly is no intent to put a shed in front of the house, between the house and the way, and there's no intent to put a shed between the house and Nahant Street, certainly not within the setback there. So there's obviously it's not a large lot. So if there is room for a shed at all, I think it would, you know, perhaps be to the side, to the left of the house there, as we're looking at the plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess my concerns are the same as they've been, with that, you know, being the original front yard of the property, now becoming the side yard of the property. Going through the zoning bylaws, and I was reviewing that for this call, there still is, you know, potential for even a small shed, or, you know, detached accessory to be placed on that side that used to be the front, based on, you know, just looking at this. It has to be set back 7.5 feet from the rear, and it has to take, you know, be set behind the line of the house. It still allows for, you know, even, I don't really know, but it says up to 25 feet tall, a 25-foot tall shed to be installed in place. And I just want to have some sort of reassurance that this, you know, it won't be taking place. Like, I know that it's unlikely to take, you know, to happen, but I'd like some reassurance if that's possible with those conditions.
I'm not sure if there's a question for us there, Mr. Chair. I think that falls more to the category of a comments. I think it's difficult for us to put the new owner of Lot B into the position of saying you know you're not entitled to comply with zoning if you're allowed to have an accessory structure somewhere in your property. But as I said before, we're not proposing one. We've agreed to no accessory structures within the front yard setback, which I believe is, I'm sorry, the side yard setback, which I believe is 15 feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where where in the plan is the note or the comment about no fence or other structures?
That I don't think that's shown on the plan itself. That's just a condition in the draft decision.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah, I think that the issue that the board's getting into is we can't restrict basically too much what happens on the lot, because the board's responsible for the subdivision of the land and for the roadway, construction of the roadway, and limit of work. You can't really impose more restrictions that would basically go into zoning issues of people's rights owning that lot. So our hands are kind of tied with saying that they can't put a shed there. So I don't know if there's much more we can do about that. I think our hands are tied on that. We would hope that someone who moved in there would not want to have a shed right there. And I think that's all we can do at this point.
But to clarify, one of the draft conditions, and consistent with the conversation that came up previously in front of this board, is related to the perimeter fencing along the Nahant. And there is in the draft decision a condition where perimeter fencing would not be constructed in Lot B's frontage along Nahant Street in order to maintain the neighborhood character along Nahant. Additionally, in the the draft condition, there would be language as it relates to no accessory structures within Lot B's required setback to the lot line, which would be applicable to the frontage in the new right-of-way, as well as the frontage along Nahant, which in this case ends up eating up a significant portion of that yard.
Yeah, so I agree that the fence would be back at least 20 feet. I don't know about the rear yard. If you can impose that there's no structures in the rear yard either.
No, Matt, it's saying no structure within the required setback of the lot line.
You mean so front and rear and side?
It
Or
just
the front yard.
It said fronting Nahant Street. So nothing within the required setback from Nahant, no structures.
So yeah, it would be 20 feet back from Nahant, but
correct.
A shed could go, say, 20 feet back from Nahant and 7.5 feet from the rear lot line, which would be within the rear yard setback, but that's basically what's allowed for zoning. So
correct.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for explaining that. I guess my other question would be, so with the, I think the first document that was presented during this meeting, those are essentially requests for 9 waivers or so. Is that part, are those waivers something that this board makes a decision to review and approve then?
Yeah, so to be clear, the waivers that we reviewed at the beginning of this meeting as it relates to the 10 waivers in that list that were shared, those waivers this board has the ability and the jurisdiction to grant or not grant. The conversation that occurred earlier where many members of the board indicated willingness to grant said waivers, but they're primarily constricted to the frontage and some of the requirements of the new proposed way that would go from Nahant and serve as a road that would access the 2 new lots in order to provide the frontage. The waivers were confined to primarily items such as the width of that roadway that would be proposed as the paper road, as well as lanes of travel, sidewalks on either side. To be clear, the way that we're talking about would be the way that would be, for lack of a better term, a theoretical way that would not be constructed, because it would be a 40-foot wide strip of asphalt on the side away from Kathleen Drive. Additionally, the other waivers that the board indicating willingness to grant was because of the geometry of the lots that are being included, there's a specific mathematical coefficient of irregularity that the lot on Mr. Dorney's current property lot A would not meet the requirements, but mostly based on a small strip that fronts Kathleen Drive and isn't, it's really meant more as a tool to prevent someone from coming up with a super irregular lot in order to basically play a frontage game. But that's not exactly what was going on in this case. And so the board deemed that it was appropriate to waive.
Yeah, I mean, I understand those. I think one of the explanations for the coefficient of irregularity previously was that the way that the lot is currently, or the state it's currently in, subdividing it actually gives it a better coefficient of irregularity. So I think go for it. It's fine with me. I think some of I guess what I'm learning during this conversation is that if this board is then going to be the people that are approving with said waivers, I would, I think it'd be nice to have some say on what conditions are going to come with these waivers, or, maybe reject the waivers if that's the case. Just because for me, that this is my side yard and my front yard. And with the subdivision and the way it's going to be designed, it's going to become someone's rear yard, which can now become a place for them to set, I'm fine with a couple of things, but I just don't want this shed and whatever in my front yard. It's just, it just doesn't really appeal to me. So that's why I bring this up for these conversations. Yeah, so I guess I don't know what powers you have. I guess from my understanding from Mr. Matt Lowry is that that's kind of out of your, you know, your jurisdiction or abilities. But if you are going to be granting waivers, I would hope that, you know, we'd be able to get something on our end as well.
Yeah, and to be clear, the waivers that we're talking about, it's related to the width of this road, you know, this road that's not going to be constructed. And you can kind of see, so for example, one of the waivers is for the this width, right? So this width right now, if you can see the line that I'm drawing, is currently proposed on being 40 feet. And in the subdivision, if you do a subdivision by right, it has to be 50 feet. And there's a number of other waivers associated with that. With that being said, that width that even being shown on the screen, that 40 feet, is not proposed on being built, because it's in the essence, in actual practice, going to be a driveway that's going to service the two properties.
Yeah, that's all fair.
Good. I appreciate all the detail and stepping through all of these new documents, and I certainly appreciate and welcome Denny and Busan your continued participation. I think that's really valuable and really helpful, and grateful for it. And I do think that's where a lot of the separate conditions that we've been enumerating and stepping through really have been in response to the future construction of the home on Lot B, and really trying to manage that process and set things up for success for the new lot, the new home, and the construction, and for you as abutters.
We both appreciate that. I'm pretty sure. Again, we have been discussing this with respect to how we will do this as the limit of work, right? Again, the waiver, of course, will happen, and ultimately construction will happen. And I understand from the last call now that as to you guys, again, this board does not necessarily have the stretcher over the construction, but more with respect to the land sale. And we have been discussing that during that land sale, what reasonable condition we can put on the limit of the work as such, right? So we are looking essentially as to how those conditions, if at all, can be added so that some of these concerns can be upfront mitigated in the document in itself, or with respect to the expectation in itself, and not left only to the developer. So those are our thoughts as to what can be done in the spirit of the law, in the spirit of the construction, and something which can be documented. That would be great.
Right. In all fairness, I think we've helped thread that needle, and that's why there are a significant number of conditions on the property. A lot of what you're talking about is very valid, and ultimately very valid for engineering and the building department when the new structure is built. So, but that's precisely why we've been talking about drainage and grading and the siting of the house, so that right, it does not create potential hazards or things like that are within the purview of the planning board.
Okay. So just another question. So on that other point, which I was discussing with respect to our property lines and the construction line being almost the same, and the discussion point was that as to can the construction line be drawn a couple of feet so that it's become clear. So is that something as a conditional be added during this time, saying that when the construction will start, the expectation on the developer will be to keep this erosion control, keep this line of control before the construction starts? Is that something which normally goes as a language in your approval, or not? I'm just trying to understand as to what to expect out of the final draft of the approval.
Correct. I think we were going to add as additional conditions to our approval, ensure that upon construction, start erosion control shall be implemented. That's really poorly worded by me. But yeah, at the start of construction, that would be there. We also talked about the tree protection shall be staked out and maintained during construction. We also added the condition for the limit of work to be demarcated by some appropriate.
Excellent. Okay,
yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, important to clarify for sure. So, all right. If there are no other comments, I think we want to thank Denny and Bouchon for and Mr. Dorney, Attorney Schomer, and Mr. Mason for your time tonight. And we look forward to seeing you again on the 25th.
And could I address something that Denny said?
Sure.
About, us, getting something for granting these waivers. These conditions are basically what we're getting in return for granting waivers. If a subdivision was done by right, you wouldn't really have any leg to stand on to ask for any conditions. So this is, you're seeing what the trade-off is for the applicant asking for waivers, is that the board then grants conditions on it. So this is the process. We are getting something out of it. It might not be everything that people want, but there are limits to how far we can request and how far the applicant has to comply with what we ask for. So because they're asking for all these waivers, we're getting these conditions.
I guess a quick one about that, like by right, can they just come in and subdivide it? Because I think from my understanding, there's one code where you're what is going to be subdivided, the front yard cannot become the rear yard of another lot. Like I just read that today. Let me pull it up real quick. No lot in which any building is located shall be divided or subdivided in such a way that the original front yard of such existing building shall face the rear yard as defined by this chapter or any proposed lot or lots. I guess with that and with the frontage being, I guess, less than what's required, can this be by right?
100's required. Denny, sorry if I'm missing this. I don't see where any front lot is facing a rear lot in this subdivision.
Well, the way it's designed with the new street, which requires all those waivers. So without a waiver by right, can this be built with it as it is?
And no, it can't. And that's one thing that the engineering had asked for a proof plan for, and we kind of knew going into it that the by right subdivision would not work there because it's just not enough land. So that's what we do agree that it's not unreasonable to put one more house out here on this lot. It's large enough. So, and I think what you're reading there is a front yard cannot face a rear yard. That is to prevent what used to be called pork chop lots, which was you'd have 10 foot of frontage on the street, you'd have a driveway go back, and then there'd be a house behind you that would basically be on the street, but would be behind another house. That is a provision that's been put in to prevent pork chop lots from happening on the side of town. So I think that's what we're seeing with that.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just just wanted to get a better understanding of this. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to educate anyone who participates in these meetings.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking the question.
Yeah. And again, I appreciate all of your questions and your comments, and wanting to really get into all of these details. It's certainly helpful for us and for the applicant. So, all right. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I don't know that, I think it might be appropriate at this point to, if the other board members are favorable to close public participation at this point, close the public hearing, because I envision that our next meeting we would probably be ready for a vote. So that might be something you might want to put up to the board.
Okay. I'm very comfortable for that. Would you like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, if I may, just before you take a motion and vote, the only concern that we would have with that is there was a request for a change to the definitive subdivision plan. And if the board closes the public hearing, technically you can't accept any additional filings or evidence from us. So while I don't disagree that I think that the board is in a position to go ahead and close, if you do, I would suggest that your motion be phrased in a way that would allow you to accept additional filings or close the hearing contingent on the receipt of the revised subdivision plan that you discussed tonight. But in the alternative, we would request that you keep the public hearing open so that we can provide the updated plan.
Yeah, and I was gonna just say something as well. I know that we got the stormwater management last night. And I know I just want to make sure that engineering, any last comments, which they could possibly do and make changes after the public hearing, as well as the gas and light, Theo. I know I forwarded that to you.
Oh, that's right.
I don't see any major issues there. I finally heard from them. But given what Attorney Schumer has said, it might be in the best interest just to kind of tie up those loose ends. But again, those might be things that could be, Matt, maybe you can speak to that, can be talked about after, but I just wanted to put that out there to the board as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Aaron.
I'd be fine leaving open too. I just effort to kind of start drawing this to an end, but I'm fine with leaving it open. And I also understand that the gas and light department is always the last one to be completed. So that's just historically what it is. So
I mean, based on the conversation tonight, I would imagine, but definitely by next meeting, I think, I won't speak for the board, but I think we'd have everything we needed by that point. I'll tied up all the loose ends.
Right. And with adequate time for us to just review and make sure everything ticks and ties.
Understood on our end.
Okay. Good. All right. Thank you, Aaron.
Sorry, Bujari, sorry, guys. One question then I didn't understand. I didn't know about this, but I understand now that as to the final approval, of course, has to go through the board and quite possibly they want to do independent of the public being present. I completely get that. My question is, before that happens, does the public able to see the final draft, which has been put in front of the board for the final approval?
Yes, all of those documents. I'm sorry, Aaron.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think at the next meeting, and Attorney Schumer, if you'd want to talk about that, they'd make any necessary changes for the approval for the final set plans.
Certainly, yeah, we'll file that within the next couple of days. We would just request a copy of Bill Renault's letter so we can address his comments.
I apologize. I thought you guys were CC'd or they sent that to you guys. I don't think there's anything other than the comment that was brought up.
No apology necessary.
Okay.
So can we expect that as to before the next meeting, couple of days at least ahead of that, we will get that final draft for us also to review, so that if at all any questions, we will be able to raise that in the next public hearing. And then, of course, I understand the final hearing will be by the board for the approval or denial.
So a lot of the times the plans aren't posted until the planning board sees it. If you think about pre-COVID days, the board wouldn't see it until the day of the meeting a lot of the times. And mistake me if I'm wrong, Matt and Bill, so the public wouldn't really see it till then either. It wouldn't be posted online, but whatever the board is comfortable with.
Yeah, normally what used to happen is we would get a copy of the plans and then the town clerk would get a copy of the plans, and if the public wanted to see it, they would have to go to the town clerk and request for the copy. I think as soon as we get the plans, if possible, they should go online. Because I don't think we need to see them before the public. If everyone can see them at the same time. So if we see them and they can post it online, that would be great.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. All right. So with that, we will continue this public hearing to our next meeting on July 25th. And thanks everyone for your participation tonight.
Thank you very much for your time, everyone.
All right. Agreed.
Thank you.
All right. Our fourth item is an update on MBTA 3A.
So yesterday at the town council, Aaron and I presented the progress of the working group to the town council. And in addition, we had an internal meeting with town staff to review kind of the status of the working group's efforts to date late last week. I would say right now for the planning board's reference that the working group, we are narrowing in on what will be the proposed compliance zone for the state to comply with MBTA Section 3A, centered around Wakefield Junction. The working group, we have a meeting scheduled for next week, which the agenda will be posted sometime in the next 48 hours for it. If anyone has any interest, the presentation and a video of last night's proceedings have already been posted to the planning board's website that anyone can review at their leisure. The major to-dos for the working group are to finalize. There's been some additional guidance from the state as it relates to the continuity of the district. Right now, the way that we have drawn the district, that is not contiguous. It's 5 distinct sections, which would violate one of the dimensional requirements from outlined by the state. There's a handful of things that are going to be ways that we could get around that by creating a little bit more extra continuity, but we're going to be reviewing that with the balance of the working group at our next meeting, as well as trying to define some next steps. The hope is that sometime in August that the working group will finalize their work related to the initial base map, so that and present to this group as well as town council and all the other various groups within town as a part of an outreach program, and potentially concurrently, pending review with the working group next week, start while that education process on the map itself is going on, starting the actual draft bylaw that will supplement the overlay district. So some exciting things to do. Obviously some more information will be coming to this board, hopefully within the next couple of meetings, and we'll be able to progress the conversation and start soliciting feedback from other members of the planning board who haven't been part of this process and has tuned in, as well as open it up for public comment. I think we got some mixed comments from the town council last night, but I would anticipate that given a different forum that we would be getting a little bit more fleshed out comments. I think after the bike ped plan, a lot of the town council, they weren't ready for an in-depth conversation around 3A, given all the individual particularities of that issue. And Aaron, I'll shout Aaron out.
Yeah, and I'll also,
great job yesterday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I'll also state too, I don't think that the town council really looked at this update as yesterday as really a feedback. It was more of just an update of kind of where the working group was at. So I'd hope as time goes on and we finalize more things that we'll be able to get the feedback necessary from that group, as well as the public participation as well. But I think for the most part, even though, you know, what Jim just said, you know, there was mixed reviews. I think overall they understand that this has to be done, and the idea of still being able to use our mixed use multifamily as a tool. And then also, you know, there was some just saying they want to just meet the state requirements. And so that might be a little less than what we've proposed. But I think what we have proposed is, Jim keeps calling a gentle density. Overall, it wasn't too contentious of a conversation. And that's all I have to say.
I thought you did a really nice presentation. You even had updated subsidized housing numbers ratio that totally got missed. So, which is all for the positive. So, yeah. So, and y'all did a really good job responding to the comments really about the importance of maintaining the character of downtown and sort of commercial and mixed use. So that I appreciate all of that. All right. Our fifth item on the agenda, update on the bylaw review committee. I'm glad it's there, but I have no updates. I don't know, Kevin, if you'd like to speak to this.
Have you heard anything from Chair Lieber about this smaller working group that was supposed to be put together over the summer?
No. So his comments were really, again, yeah, about who's going to be serving, excuse me. The anticipation is that 2 members of our board would participate, so no, I haven't heard anything. So Kevin, you and I can follow up with Dan and come back to the board next meeting.
Okay.
So. All right, and last but not least, item 6, items not anticipated by the board. Would anyone care to start?
Yeah, I unfortunately was not able to attend last meeting, but I've also noticed that it has not been posted. So I'm not sure what the process is for getting meetings posted. There are other meetings that were done subsequent to 2 weeks ago that are up online. So I don't know who's responsible for this and how it gets done, but we are kind of relying on being posted as a document of what happened. I was hoping to be the last meeting for now, but I wasn't able to. So, you know what the process is who does this?
So usually they are pretty quick turnaround. I was actually looking for another recording of a meeting that was done recently that I was unable to attend, and I can't recall what meeting it was. I was just going to listen to it. And I know there's some transition right now between some of the committees' videos being handled internally, but I believe something's being held up with whatever the video I was looking for as well. The turnaround's usually just a couple days, and it had been like a week that passed, but I can follow up and see why this one isn't quite on yet as well. It hasn't been like this in the past, so I'm not sure exactly what the holdup is.
So when these are recorded, where does the recording go? That's something.
Yeah, so they go to a town cloud, and then a lot of times we work with, you know, WCAT was hosting it on their channel, so you could find all the different playlists and things like that for where they'd be uploaded. But that's as much as I know. So.
All right, yeah, we can look into that.
But I'll find out about it.
All right, thank you. And then the other question I have is, do you know the status of the subdivision rules and regulations, where they're at? It's been edited, been sent on to engineering yet?
I haven't heard anything back from after sending it to, it was a couple weeks ago, to Erin, Theo, and Bill Renow.
This is a little bit of a too late, but I did email Bill to ask him the status, and so we'll certainly come back with an update on that. I was hoping that we would be able to discuss it in one of our September meetings, if or both of our meetings, and
so has it formally been sent to engineering for their review, or are we still in?
Yes.
It has been, okay. Yeah. So we give them the expectation and the hope they would comment back or anything?
Yeah, I will follow up with Bill again, but that's what my email to him today was saying. You know, is it possible to get comments back either of our our September meetings? I was thinking September 26th, but
all right, that's fine. As long as there is some expectation that we need to get moving on it, but that's fine. Yeah, thanks.
And it sounds like we don't want to add proof plan to any of our best practices.
No, we can request that at any time if we feel that it's kind of on the edge, but in this situation, we kind of going in at even if a conventional by right could be done there, that we wouldn't want it done because overkill for one house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In all fairness, that was something that's very new to me. So I'm wondering, maybe that's something we could put as a definition or something like that.
We may want to put in there a proof plan may be requested. So definitely you can throw that in there. I don't think there's anything stopping us from telling someone come in and say, oh, we can build a subdivision, but we want to get waivers and all this stuff. There's nothing to stop us saying, okay, go ahead, show us you can do it. Mm-hmm. That's basically the proof plan there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I hate to have to again put up front, you have to do this before we're even going to consider it, because again, there's a lot of work involved on something that is never going to get built, and not needed why spend the money, because ultimately in the end it's the homeowner, the developer, whoever is footing the bill. The engineering company is more than happy to do it as long as they get paid for it.
Yeah. So. Understood. Anyone else? Items?
I do have one comment. It's I'll be on vacation. If you notice, August 1st is a Tuesday. So we'll be meeting 8th and the 22nd. I'm not available on the 22nd. I'll be on vacation, lost hopefully somewhere in Yosemite.
All right. All right.
Oh.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I would like to propose that we cancel that meeting.
Abstain.
So, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, better than canceling, we just not schedule one. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about the meeting on August 22nd, you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But I would say historically, we usually never have that meeting anyways.
Yeah.
It is the time that everyone gets off.
Yeah. Good. I expect to bring a potential draft calendar for the fall and winter, itemizing some discussion items, and we'll have that for the next meeting. The only other thing I wanted to give a shout out to is the Joint Center for Housing Studies does a number of housing reports, and they at the end of June they published their State of the Nation's Housing, which is a really detailed and useful analysis of homeownership and rental trends in the country, and they give some regional information, and so I think a really useful primer, so and really helpful. So. All right. If there aren't any other items,
Mr. Chair, I did have one item.
Sure.
The meeting on July 25th, I am unavailable. I'm going to be on vacation, so I will not be attending that meeting.
Okay. All right. Very good. Have a great vacation. Well deserved. So, for everybody. All right.
Well, all right. So that brings us to a question. Do you think we'll be voting on Hunt Street at our next meeting, or we'll just be closing everything out and then voting on it afterward? Again, we can vote to approve it, and then they can finish up with the paperwork later. So, considering that Jim's not going to be there, maybe we just close it out on the next meeting, tie up everything, and then I'd rather have the full board vote on it. It's better to have everyone.
August 8th?
Yeah.
Matt, are you saying at the August 8th meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. I'm certainly very amenable to that. The August 24th is our final deadline now. So yeah, that's a good plan. I mean, alternatively, if we were all going to be here on August on the 25th, you can close a public hearing and then take a vote in the same one, right?
You can. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Well, that. Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Matt. So we'll do that. We'll close it on the 25th and take a vote on August 8th.
Did Bill say he was away on the 8th?
No, the 22nd.
Okay. Okay.
Very good. All right. That's great. So, all right. Any other vacations? Anybody else doing anything fun? Yeah, Susan. All right.
I'm not here on the 8th.
All right. All right. Good stuff. Good. SA. Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Matt. All right. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and myself, yes. So thank you all. Thank you for ticking through everything with 197, and see you in 2 weeks.
All right,
Thank you.
sounds good.
Everyone.
Theo?
Yeah.
Can you tell me who made the motion to adjourn? I didn't hear
That
it.
was Matt,
Matt, and then
and
who's,
Bill seconded.
thank you, Matt Lowry. And-
Sure.
Okay. And then, all right. So it's going to be closed. The public hearing will be closed on the 25th,
Yeah, we expect to close it on the 25th, and
and then you're going to
vote.
vote on the 8th.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Thanks very much.
sure.
Good night.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks. Bye.